Chapter 5, Saving Mike. Okay, so, Mike had just finished recording his song in a studio. He was overly exhausted that he couldn't even go home straight away. So he sat down to think about his journey in the music industry. Michael was 16 years old and was already an artist, or at least he had the potential. It had always been his dream to do music, and he had taken the bold step a few months back to pursue it. However, it hadn't been as he had anticipated. He knew he did good music, but his songs hadn't been discovered by a massive audience. He was told by a lot of colleagues and relatives that he wasn't going to get anywhere in the music industry without connections. This demoralized him because he didn't have any links to a famous person. He was now in doubt whether doing music was actually his calling. A text popped up in his phone. "Hey Mike, are you still coming for dinner?" The text from Jess read. Jess was his best friend. She had invited him to a family dinner. Mike had a feeling that this was going to be a disaster, because he was always a bit uncomfortable around the girl's family. This was perhaps because they were very wealthy compared to his. However, he didn't want to disappoint his best friend who had been planning this dinner for weeks, so he sent in a reply, "Sure Jess, I'll be there at exactly 6 o'clock. He quickly left to freshen up as he didn't want to be late for the dinner. *****. When Mike got to Jess's house, he was shown the way in by a domestic staff. The table was properly set because it was a rare occasion. It seemed the Parkers were overdressed, or perhaps Mike was just too underdressed. "Join us, Mrs. Parker," Jess's mother said softly to Mike. He smiled and sat in a chair close to an excited Jess. Jess's father, Mr. Parker, sat comfortably at the table's edge like a king while he studied Mike quietly. Jess had a twin brother, Calvin, and an elder sister, Edna, and they were also seated. Calvin was on his phone and seemed not to notice his presence, and Edna had a grin on. "He looks like a nice young lad," Mr. Parker finally uttered loudly, so that Calvin was forced to drop his phone to join the conversation. "You told me something about him singing," Mrs. Parker said to Jess. Jess nodded. "So you're a musician then?" She turned to Mike. He adjusted himself like in a job interview. "Yes ma'am. I started it as a hobby a few months ago, but I actually want it as a career now," he replied nervously. "You must be doing quite well for yourself," Mr. Parker cut in. "Sure Dad, he's very good at it," Jess answered quickly. Calvin giggled. It got everyone's attention. "Something funny?" Jess asked, slightly peeved. "Oh nothing," he laughed, "just that if he is that good as you claim, why haven't I heard about him? You know. Why haven't I heard any of his songs?" Jess turned to her father to complain. "You see Dad, he always does this. He keeps doing this to my guests." And she confronted Calvin. "Why are you always so annoying?" "No, I'm just saying he should work harder and get people to actually hear his songs." "And does he have connections?" "Because from the look of things, he doesn't. And we all know one can't get far without connections." "OSTOPIT," she screamed at him. Calvin dropped his fork and hurried out. Jess followed him, yelling. Their father couldn't stand it, and he joined them to try and calm the situation. At the table, everyone was quiet. Mike had never been so embarrassed in his whole life. He was at the center of it all, and at that point, he just wanted to hide his face under the sandwich on his plate. "Hey," Edna whispered to him, jovially, "getting a wider audience for your music has been made a lot easier. You know. I'm talking about Blizzy Code. It's helped me with my—" She stopped and quickly dashed out when she heard her name in the argument between her siblings. Mrs. Parker stared at him the whole time. She wore a smile on her face, and it made him restless. She had been so quiet during the whole confusion. Then she pointed at a jug on the table. "Tea. *****. The whole time Mike was at the studio, he had been having flashbacks on what transpired the previous day at his best friend's place. She had apologized on the phone and promised to make amends. However, his agitation was gone and his key concern was on what Edna had said to him. But he didn't have any drive left in him to call and ask about it. He had heard her appropriately Blizzy Code. What was it? He had just finished recording again and he decided to speak to someone about it. So he approached Ellie, a disc jockey. They never really spoke to each other. They were just a hi and a hey kind of colleagues. She had only started her career but her works were already given a lot of recognition. I must confess, she said gleefully, I listen to your songs a lot. But I don't think you have been given enough credit. Why don't you upload your songs with a Blizzy Code? Yeah, he replied excitedly, tell me about Blizzy Code. With a Blizzy Code, you can own your music. You can put everything you have made in one place. Really? Yeah. With it, you get to reach a large audience. And when you've located your audience, giving them more of your music won't be difficult. You can have everything you've ever produced in one place, and get to find out how your audience feel about your songs. But how? Mike questioned, a bit confused. A Blizzy Code is reserved for everyone. All you just need to pay for it. Now when people get to scan this Blizzy Code, it takes them to your site and they can have access to your music. Ellie said, you just need to get the code, man, and put it out there for people to scan. With this, you can be heard and Calvin won't have to be a jerk to you anymore, Ellie teased. Oh, this is awesome. Thank you, Ellie. The pleasure is all mine, she replied. Leaving, he was overwhelmed. He felt rejuvenated and confident. Now he could make more good music, and would actually be heard. He got a text message from Jess, and it read, hey Mikey, can you make it to dinner at my place today? PLEs. He grinned. Dinner with her family won't hurt nobody. Plus, he needed to appreciate Edna. Sure Jess, I'll be there. He typed in.